Thank you very much, Victoria, for this moving introduction. And I tell you, my family is happy in London, and we have President Trump to thank for being relocated to the UK. And good morning, everybody. Sabah al-khair, assalamu alaikum. I am particularly honored and thrilled to be among such distinguished panelists, Karen and Rachel. And may I start by really extending our heartfelt gratitude for you, for UNRWA, for all the service. I remember your work in Gaza and beyond, and meeting you, Karen. And your presence here means a lot to us. And let me say how pleased I am and honored to be speaking to you today at this very, very important occasion alongside the esteemed speakers. And also thank the Palestine Return Center, very good friends and long defenders of the right of return here in the UK and beyond. And of course, with the University of Exeter and the European Center for Palestine and the Al Jazeera Research Center for organizing this timely conference. The issue of refugees, as everyone knows here, goes to the very, very heart of the Palestinian cause. The Palestinian cause began with the forced displacement and dispossession of around 2/3 of our nation, and losing 2/3 of our land in 1948. That is the origin of the cause of Palestine. This process of forced exile, displacement, dispossession is ongoing until this very moment. Just last week, Israel has declared that it has approved a law, between parentheses, to annex big parts, swaths of the occupied West Bank. And it was and continues to be a deliberate, since 1948, colonial process of displacement and replacement, as our good friend Professor Elam Papi accurately described. But let me say this right from the beginning. There will be no resolution to our struggle without a resolution to the origin of the issue, that is the plight and the rights of the Palestinian refugees. And such a resolution must see the refugees able to fulfill and enjoy their rights, including the right of return. Some describe this right as an impossible issue to resolve, some in Israel, of course, with some of their international friends. Let's be clear. For us, this is both a collective and an individual right. My father, Saeed, was born in a beautiful town by the name of Simsim, in the south of Palestine, near Asqalan. In 1948, my father lost his home, his land, and as a result, I was born in the Rafah refugee camp to the very south, in the beautiful Rafah, to the very south of Gaza. And there is a story why I was born there, because my father and grandfather, as they were trying to protect their family from the shelling and the killings of 1948, my grandfather kept asking, "Are we still in Palestine?" And they would answer him, "Yes." At one point he asked, "Are we still in Palestine?" They said, "Yes," his colleagues, his friends. "But if you step one step, you will be in Egypt. There I was born." So he wanted us to stay in Palestine. But let me first make a rather downcast observation, Karen. It is a testament to human failure, our and others' failure, that we are today talking about UNRWA at 70. Just think about what it means. 70 years of refugee camps, of refugee status, of enforced temporary refugee existence. Millions remain stateless and homeless and targeted. Millions, these 7 decades later, suffer the most precarious existence of them all, that of exile. Nothing is more hurtful to a human being than exile, forced exile. Millions are denied their basic right to return home and to live in freedom and self-determination. That is a failure. It is ours and it is the world's. That said, I of course have to commend UNRWA. Like what we just heard from the director of PRC, their work has been tireless and crucial. It has not only kept people alive, but offered them education, opportunities, livelihoods, a chance of betterment. Perhaps most importantly, some hope in this dark time is really giving all these refugees an opportunity. Let me use myself as an example. Upon graduation from Birzeit University in the mid-90s exactly, my first and only choice was to join the United Nations because of exactly what we just heard. Because our life as refugees was all about the blue flag, the 4x4 jeeps, the UN schools, the UN flag flying all over our camps. I grew up with a semi-permanent roof blowing above our heads in our temporary homes. Every day I would see the UNRWA service to all of us, all my generation, all the kids, the children in the schools, in the hospitals, the clinics. And my generation grew up really to look up to, respect, associate ourselves with your service, with your mission, with UNRWA, with the UN. I'm just one of hundreds of thousands of Palestinians of my generation upon which UNRWA left its mark. We have grown up, some of us, to be the voices and representatives of our nation. Some of us have become the professors, the doctors, the geniuses of the IT. All that thanks to UNRWA. UNRWA has been among the most effective investments in human history. This year, UNRWA educates around 500,000 Palestinian kids, children. These 500,000 children will also grow up to be the voices of their generation and to be a force of good for their nation and other nations. And my friends, UNRWA and the care and the support for Palestinian refugees in particular, and refugees in general, is an international moral and legal obligation. We, the Palestinians, did not choose to be refugees. We do not want to be refugees. We cannot wait for the time when we are no longer refugees. UNRWA's continued existence is a manifestation of the international community's commitment to and responsibility under international resolutions on the Palestinian refugee issue and on the Palestinian issue in general. And yet today the political narrative has become so hostile that even this responsibility of caring for refugees until their rights are upheld and implemented, even that is under attack. Even the commitment to uphold international responsibility and care for refugees is being questioned. We have regressed so much in the last few years, thanks to the Trump administration, that we are not talking about the lack of international will to implement the rights of the refugees. We are only attacking the international responsibility to care for them until that will comes about. This is absolutely not right. Refugees everywhere have been a force of good. Even in the US, that is orchestrating this attack. The US was built, by the way, by refugees. And we are now labeled as refugees by various Israeli politicians and officials as a demographic threat. That's the whole political discussion about refugees. And let's once and for all challenge this evolving narrative. The idea that we are somehow exceptional as Palestinians. Only Palestinians as refugees are a threat, a demographic threat. There are international standards, and my colleagues here in the panel know this best about the rights of refugees in general, what happened in Kosovo and the Balkans and everywhere else. Why we are always made the exception? We owned our homes. My father did own his home. We owned our farms. We lived in our villages for hundreds and hundreds of years, for millennia. We are one of the most ancient nations, if not the most ancient nation. The oldest human community is in Jericho. And therefore, we shall not be the exception. We have a right to go back to our homes, and we will. There is a narrative that is being pushed by the current American administration under President Trump that UNRWA perpetuates the right of return. That's why they have cut their funding to UNRWA, that it was a direct attack, not on UNRWA as an organization, but on our rights. And the narrative originates from Benjamin Netanyahu, publicly, saying that UNRWA keeps the talk, the discussion about the right of return. I have this to say to both Trump and Netanyahu. Refugees' rights, our rights, have nothing to do with the existence of UNRWA or an organization. We commend, we vow, and we will continue working with UNRWA. But our right of return is not associated with an organization. Our right of return, our national rights and individual rights are kept alive by our own insistence on our rights. We do so first of all because we have an agency as Palestinians, and we have pride. We keep our identities alive, our culture, our heritage alive, our history, our oral history, our written history, in every sphere of life, in every corner of every refugee camp. And many of you know this very well. We know where we came from. We know our homes in Jaffa and Haifa and Asqalan, and in the hundreds of villages that have been since destroyed. We remember how we got to where we are now. We know what happened in 1947 and 1948. We know in details, and we tell our children. We do not forget. This is why the right of return is alive, and it will continue being alive. Come and ask my son Saeed, who's 8 years old, where are you from? He will immediately tell you, I am from Simpson. He has not seen Simpson, but he knows that is the origin of his father and his grandfather. And I know this goes for every Palestinian refugee, every and each Palestinian refugee. The only thing that is preventing a resolution is not our definition and our defiance, nor the clarity of international law. It is Israel's insistence that the Palestinians, alone among the nations, do not have the right to return to the lands and homes from where they were forcibly uprooted. Let me fast forward very quickly by saying that this whole attack on UNRWA has been serious. I was in Washington when the attack started. It was very serious. And it was meant to actually see the end of that organization. To cut $300 million in one go instantly was meant to actually dismantle the organization at once. Today we stand and the organization is with us. UNRWA is with us, kicking and screaming and still giving opportunities and life to hundreds of thousands of Palestinians. Thanks to the world. You saw only last week or the week before the resolution on UNRWA. While the US was trying to isolate UNRWA, isolate the Palestinian people, isolate the Palestinian leadership, UNRWA and the Palestinian people and the Palestinian leadership have managed to isolate the US. Only 2 voted against UNRWA in this world. 2. Guess? Yes, even Micronesia did not vote against UNRWA. And there can be no clearer rebuff of the Trump administration's policy on UNRWA than the United Kingdom. Not only did not follow suit, it doubled its contribution. This year, in 2019, the UK contributed £65.5 million, compared to £33.5 million only last year. We thank the government and the people of the UK for this very principled position. The attack on UNRWA is, of course, nothing more and nothing less an attack on the people of Palestine. The US has clearly decided to end the Palestinian issue, to liquidate our rights, and is engaged in a multi-pronged attack. I'm not going to go through the list. You know what happened. The first decision was to close our mission to Washington in November 2017. That was a direct decision to de-recognize the Palestinian peoplehood, collective rights, representation, followed by cutting funding to UNRWA, followed by cutting funding to the Palestinian Authority, to the civil society, followed by the decision on Jerusalem, followed by the decision on the Golan Heights, and all the way to only a couple of weeks ago that settlements are not inconsistent with international law. How shameful, disgraceful. And as such, Israel now has the guts to actually stand in the daylight and tell all of us in the eye that it will annex territory, occupy territory. As such, we have the Minister of Interior Security only a few days ago by the name of Naftali Bennett saying that not only we will kill Palestinians with impunity, but we will not return their bodies. How sick is that? How sick is that? It's this low we have arrived at. I mean, you know, all these years of killing with impunity and violating the very basic international rules is something. And then depriving families of burying their loved ones has nothing to do with politics and narrative. It's sickness. Now, at no point this administration has been willing to respect Palestinian rights, international resolutions, and that's why, my friend Arafat, we decided to boycott this administration, to have a policy of no contact with the administration. We do not engage in international relations only because we want to talk. We engage in international relations because it advances our national rights. Indeed, and here I will be concluding, I just want to say that the US administration ultimate plan is nothing but a real estate deal, because I was there, I was a foot soldier, just a real estate deal. You know how real estate business goes in New York? Somebody gets the property and somebody gets the cash. So the Trump and his team decided that Israel gets the property, gets it all, wins all, and we get some cash. Well, that's one side of it. And we have told them, and maybe this is an opportunity to tell them again, I mean, come on, we are not for sale. We are not for sale. And we can offer you cash if this is really what you are about. But number two, which is much more dangerous than the first, and by the way, number one explains to you the whole Bahrain workshop, the Kushner Bahrain workshop. Because the mindset of this administration is that we, the Palestinian people, we have needs, not rights. We have needs. I'm not going to swear. It's life, I think. The second dimension of this administration is much more dangerous. It is almost, Friedman, the US ambassador to Israel, is on a religious mission. Do you remember the sledgehammer in his hand underneath the old city of Jerusalem? Opening a tunnel, claiming that this tunnel was a tunnel for pilgrims 2,000-3,000 years ago. He is starting the Armageddon. The Armageddon. The religious war. The religious conflict and confrontations, which we resist. We believe this is a political and legal issue that could be resolved. Now, let me just clarify our position and end here. We believe the two-state solution on the 1967 borders is an international responsibility because it was in the first place an international demand. By the way, it was never a Palestinian demand. It was a Palestinian concession. This two-state solution includes these two most important items. First is the end of Israel's occupation that began in 1967 and the creation of a sovereign, independent state of Palestine on the 1967 borders, not based on the 1967 borders, with East Jerusalem as its capital. That's number one. Number two, the full respect and implementation of the right of return and compensation for Palestinian refugees in accordance with UN Resolution 194. One does not and will not come at the expense of the other. May I repeat this? One does not and will not come at the expense of the other. Those who have the illusion that we will be focusing on the state, not the refugees, or the refugees are not the state, are mistaken. This is the formula. This is the maximum we could have offered the world and the minimum we will accept. Yesterday was the International Day of Solidarity with the Palestinian people. Only yesterday, the 29th of November. We take our strength first and foremost from our people, our nation. But also, we take it from our friends, our international friends, our Arab brothers and sisters, from the international community and the people of the world. This is our cause, but it is also the world's. This is not just about justice for Palestinians. After all, what does justice for Palestinians mean, if not simply justice for all? Justice for Palestinians is justice for all. And I remember Martin Luther King saying that injustice anywhere is injustice everywhere. That is why we see the Palestinian flag now flying everywhere. I wish you were with me in Sheffield only a few weeks ago and seeing that genuine love and identifying with the people and the flag of Palestine. We see the flag flying everywhere, not only in Sheffield, everywhere, in the UK and beyond, because our flag is no longer just ours. It is, and it has become a symbol for the struggle for justice everywhere. That gives me hope. Thank you very much.